Welcome back to Rally the Valley. We're on episode 3 out of 4 already. It's gone by pretty quick. I'm Jack. I got Jordan, Dixie, Riley, and Claire like usual. We got a great episode today. I'm super excited. Dixie, do you want to go ahead and introduce our guest?
Yeah, I'd love to. As some of y'all know, I am from the Waco area, and so I am super pumped to be introducing Skyler. Skyler is a junior at Baylor University, and she works with some of the athletes and social media with the athletic department there. So she's going to be telling us today kind of how what she does and how she gets into that. Skyler, do you want to start us off by telling us how you got into that and like what you do with Baylor Athletics?
Yeah, of course. Super excited to be on here with you guys. I would say I kind of came to this in a really roundabout way. I started off in college, not anywhere near where I'm at now. I started off as a business major, and quickly found out that business pre-cal was just not going to be something I could accomplish. Um, so kind of pushed that to the side, made it my minor, that in corporate communications, and then changed my major to journalism. And even then, like by the time I had gotten to journalism, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do whenever I graduated. So I kind of sat there for a while, talked to a lot of peers and mentors, family, and the biggest thing that I got from people was just kind of whatever you do, you want to love for the rest of your life. And I was like, oh, no pressure. Um, so yeah, from there, I just kind of started thinking about what do I enjoy, and sports has been a really big part of my life. I come from a very athletic family, between athletes and coaches, and then myself being involved in athletics. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do that involves athletics? So I decided that my major is journalism. I can somehow get myself involved and picked the PR route. And I thought, well, what can I do now to make myself stand out later? And I had gotten a text from a friend, and she was like, "Did you see that Baylor Athletics is hiring on students?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." So I reached out to the athletic department, got in contact with Justin Hoff, who is amazing. He runs kind of just a lot of stuff. He wears a lot of different hats in the athletic department. So I met with him over Zoom, and he kind of asked me, what are you interested in? What do you like to do? And I straight up told him, I like to do a little bit of everything. Like I really
Yeah.
could see myself interviewing people. I could see myself taking pictures of people. I could see myself doing social media content. Like wherever you need me, I just want to get experience with the this side of athletics instead of being a fan. And so we then had another meeting and then another meeting. And that last meeting I did with two of the guys. One of the guys is he does graphic design, then the other does social media. And so we all three kind of got in there together, and they started a new position, which my it's what I ended up doing at the end of the day. It's kind of different from the other student workers. So my immediate boss is Cody Soto, and that's who runs the social media accounts. Um, and so he has his whole own team of girls. There's 3 or 4 of them, and they are all the time behind the camera. And they do a fantastic job, and they're super great at giving me ideas. But where my position is a little bit different, I make content and I post it on my own account, and then I collaborate with Baylor Athletics or with Baylor men's basketball or whatever the team is that I'm working with. So I'm given a lot of wiggle room. I kind of really get to show my creative side. And I get to do a little bit of everything. Like I had said, I have some videos where I do edits, and I have some videos where I'm interviewing the guys on the fields or the girls on the court. I get to do a little bit of media day. I just kind of get to do a little bit everywhere. So it is definitely a perfect position for me, I feel like.
Sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. I have a quick question. So you said you do a little bit of like everything between like interviews, photography. You just want to do like kind of everything. Do you have like a specific area that you like to focus in more so? Do you think you're better at, or just like anything like that? Is there anything you might think like now being in it for a little while, do you want to like specialize in?
And stay where I'm at as far as what I'm doing. I'll probably continue to be in different places. It's an opportunity, I think, for the athletics program to be able to have one channel in multiple different places. But whenever graduation comes, I think things will look a little bit different. I still want to go into PR. That's kind of the dream. But it works. It works with social media and it works with athletics because I'll be working with social media all the time. And a big part of PR is storytelling. And I feel like storytelling at the end of the day is the biggest part of this position and this job that I have right now is kind of getting those stories out to people through a digital platform rather than a physical press release.
That's awesome. I'm a PR girl too, so I definitely get that. All my classes are all storytelling, digital media and storytelling, all of that stuff. I love
Yes,
that.
love it.
I kind of want to ask a quick question. It goes because you obviously have been talking about PR, and with social media. So like, how do you balance the fun side of like posting athletes and stuff, but also, I mean, you're working for Baylor D1 University, and you got to keep it professional. So how do you kind of find that line and balance it well?
Right. Yeah, so I think that's definitely been a learning curve for me for sure. I've been on social media for a really long time. I've built up a pretty good platform on TikTok, and that was not from being serious online by any means. It was like I think that my video that like really blew up, it was a long time ago, and it was some video about like different ways people dress at school or something and like dressing up as whatever. I was like a freshman in high school. And it was not serious at all. And I think our generation in general is not like the most serious, especially whenever we get online. And I think you see that leaking into the corporate world more and more with videos that are like, oh, we let our Gen Z intern edit this ad or this
Yeah, I
video.
love those videos.
And I mean, it works. It works to get out to, I think, our age group. But obviously, you still want to be reaching different ages throughout your entire platform. So I think that for me, I try and catch the human side of the athletes as much as I can to be able to humanize them. And I like to get the real side as much as I can. But I also think that there's still something to say for making sure that everything that's being posted is aligning with the school's values. I literally before I post every single video, I'm like, okay, is this something that Baylor would post? Is this something that demonstrates what we stand for as a school? And so I think, yeah, for sure, just asking myself those questions and kind of seeing, like, is this interesting enough to capture the attention of people that are younger, but also keep that mindset of tradition and values for the older group of people, I think is kind of a good way to go about setting that line between everything.
Yeah, it definitely seems tough. And like, because I've literally seen like on Instagram and stuff too, sometimes schools will post things and then later, like, I'll literally see something about the fact they took it down. And I'm like, oh, like, they clearly didn't, find that line. So it's definitely like something really challenging I've always wondered about.
Yeah, it is for sure. I think it's also hard because you want your videos to do well, and your videos are going to do well whenever you're using trending audios or you're doing a trending dance. But you kind of have to have that moral code sometimes too, at least a work moral code where you're like, okay, is this really an appropriate sound to use under this video, or is this an appropriate dance? As popular as it is and as well as the video might do, is that something that you want to be representative of your establishment?
I kind of had a question to double down on that a little bit. I know with social media for everyone, it's always hard to kind of get a grip on like what the fans like and how they engage. Like what kind of engagement have you received and have you ever posted something that you thought was going to do well and maybe it hasn't or maybe it didn't land the way you want to? Because I feel like that's something people always kind of experience when like starting their careers in social media.
Yeah. I think that I've definitely had videos that have not done well, and I thought we're going to do well. And it's really discouraging. I'm not going to lie. You put a lot of time and effort into a video, and it doesn't do well, and you're like, well, why didn't it do well? But then, the longer that I've been doing this, the more I've kind of realized there's so many factors that go into creating content and creating content that's going to do well. Um, a big thing is understanding the platform that you're posting on. So TikTok is going to have a completely different algorithm than Instagram, and just like that, Twitter is going to be different from whatever other platform. So I think that for sure you have to understand, what platform you're posting on and how that platform works. I think that creating relatable content is a really big thing as well. Like I was saying earlier, authenticity is a really big thing, and kind of humanizing players. I think that that's something that fans really like to see. One of the big things that I kind of tried to focus on at the beginning, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out how to do now as we're moving into basketball season, is how do I give the fans content they're not going to see anywhere else? So behind the scenes, or talking with an athlete, or kind of getting, for Women's Media Day, I am working on a video right now. It was a Finish the Lyrics song, and it was very obvious what songs the girls listen to. And I think that that's kind of stuff that fans like to see, is things that they can relate to, and they can kind of create those relationships with people. Timing is a really big thing as well. Like if I post at 1:30 in the morning, whenever I'm done editing after a football game, nobody's going to see that video until the next morning. And then even then, whenever you get to the next morning, well, now you've had a ton of different accounts post stuff, and that meantime, so they're going to be pushing out the stuff that was posted more recently, and then your video just gets lost. And I think that's something that I definitely have caught myself doing. I'm like so eager because I finished this video and it looks so good, and I post it, and then I'm like, why in the world didn't it do well? I'm like, well, you posted at 1:30 in the morning. What did you think was going to happen? But yeah, I think those are really big things. Audio, trending audio is super big. That's something I learned recently, was that I was getting so frustrated because I was like, I don't want to use the sound that TikTok is suggesting for me, or this song has a cuss word in it, and I'm not going to use a song that has a cuss word in it. And so I found that, I can use whatever audio I want, and then I can put the trending audio underneath that, and I can mute that audio, and it'll push my video out more, because that TikTok is giving you that sound because it's trying to push it. It's giving it to you for a reason. So if you can find a way to kind of correlate that into your video, then I think it's probably going to do a lot better than if not.
That's really smart. I didn't even think about doing that, kind of using like the algorithm to your advantage. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Skylar, I want to backtrack you just a little bit because you brought up a bit earlier Baylor's values. And obviously, Baylor's such a unique university for so many reasons. But when it
Right.
comes to your content, and we're seeing more in sports, there's a convergence between culture and sport. And obviously, as I'm assuming a content creator, you have to try and kind of stay out of all that mess. How do you manage to do that? What are kind of the content guidelines that y'all have to make sure to avoid to not lose engagement?
Um, I would definitely say one of the biggest things is going to be time, as far as like how long your video is, especially whenever you're trying to capture the attention of a younger audience. That's kind of like my biggest thing in coming into this role, is trying to get more people my age to be more invested in sports. And so I think a big challenge with engagement is your video is too long. Or unfortunately, I think that people in our generation have kind of lost our attention span. And I mean, I find myself doing it too. I will be scrolling on my phone and I come across a video and it's interesting for about 10 seconds. And then I'm like, no. I think that often is making sure that I fit everything into a video that I need to be in there, but at the same time, I am making sure that it's within, I try and make my videos under a minute, max a minute, unless it's something that's like really good and I know people are going to stay for the full time, which is very far and few to come by. So yeah, I would say time for sure is a really big thing. And as far as values go, I think Baylor's biggest thing that we push out there is tradition. We have a lot of traditions at Baylor, and we hold those very near and dear to our heart. Homecoming is coming up, and that is capitalized on a lot, I think, by our school, and as it should be. We had one of the first homecomings that started. I couldn't even tell you the year that it started, but it was a long time ago. And so our homecoming has been a tradition for a very long time. So that'll be some content that I really try and capitalize on here in the upcoming weeks, is really banking on that word tradition and looking at, we have alumni that come back. How can I tie that alumni into a video and kind of capture the hearts of not only the people that are getting to experience homecoming and this tradition now, but also the people who have experienced it in the last 10, 20, 30 years. Because I mean, it's always been a huge thing. So yeah, I would say for sure is making sure that you capitalize on those values and making sure that you're expressing them, verbally or visually in some way.
I really like that you brought up tradition because we're seeing in so many different universities, they'll bend the knee to like force change, basically. Change is forced upon them. And Baylor has always been a school like Texas A&M and like other schools, a lot of them in the South, that are very resistant to that. And they're very stuck with their traditions. And so I like that you use the advertising that y'all do to enforce that. And it'd be like, if you want a traditional university, a true home university, you go to Baylor. Like I love that you mentioned that for your advertising.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that Baylor does a really good job of making, like you said, that home feeling. It feels like home because you know exactly what you're going to get. Now, that's not to say that we don't welcome change in certain ways. Like you said, the world of college athletics is changing. And there's only so much that you can do about that. A big one has been NIL recently. That's something that like you can't just say, oh no, we're not going to do that. But I do still think that while we have those things in the athletic world that is changing and changing rapidly, I think that's kind of whenever Baylor says, all right, we're going to hold on to the traditions that we do have and the traditions that we are, keeping as close to us as we can, because that's going to be giving people kind of that view of, okay, they're welcoming change and they're welcoming maybe things that need to be improved in the athletic world in general. But also are not afraid to stand on their ground and, stay true to what I think we have believed in for so long, and that's to make it home.
For
That's
sure.
awesome. You go ahead, Dixie.
Yeah, no. So like I really like how you elaborated on that. Like it is always changing. You mentioned the NIL along with that, the transfer portal is like it's ever changing. And so that's one thing like we're not going to be able to change. Like I do a lot of like research on that. And then also like I work in that field as well, and so I see that a lot. And it really has changed the game, but I also do like that in the communication field and like I know like what you do, it's very important to like show teamwork and collaboration. So like do you think that like when you are filming or really storytelling, and I want to like ask you, you said your journalism, when you're telling a story or you're showing like aspects of a team, are you trying to like show like unity? Like is that a big thing that you're trying to show in your like content is like unity and like team collaboration? Like I feel like that's something that like I feel most like departments are trying to get more out there because there is so much change and like the NIL is more brand deals. So I know this is a lot, but it's more individualized nowadays. So I feel like content and communications needs to be more focused on bringing teams together. So like have you ever thought about like making that more of a priority when creating content and stories?
Yeah. I definitely do think that I try and capitalize on that in my content for sure. I had a football game recently where we or I was getting a lot of content prior to the game of them warming up. And I always like to get that because that's where the true personalities of the guys are kind of shining through. They're getting ready, they're still kind of playful, they're not like full beast mode yet. And in that video that I had recently, I did a voiceover. Um, and one of the points that I had brought out was how much Baylor really has that family aspect, especially with the athletes. They are brothers, and it is very evident. And it's not just with the players either. The coaching staff is insane whenever it comes to loving on those guys. And it's very evident in everything that they do. I mean, even small things like before a game and they have handshakes that they'll do or whatever as they're going through the tunnel to get up to the locker room and coming down from Bear Walk. So I definitely think that people that are at Baylor and that are especially playing sports at Baylor are for sure experiencing that kind of unity that you're talking about. I mean, a lot of the guys live with each other and continue to live with each other. And if they're not, they're at each other's houses all the time. And I mean, if they're not doing that, they're doing team bonding at coaches' houses, which I also love that our athletics, and not even just the broad athletics page, but even like specific sports teams pages will kind of capitalize on that as well, like getting content of the guys at Coach Aranda's house and they're doing a pool party or whatever. Like it's lighthearted, it's fun, it's silly, and it's all of the guys together being guys. Like that's kind of I think the stuff that people want to see, not to discredit, wanting to see stats, wanting to see highlighted plays of the game. I do think that's still very important. But I think that we're kind of coming to a day and age where it's also almost equally as important to show, how the guys are being nurtured and nurturing themselves. But as I think also though, as far as NIL goes, I think that it's kind of almost creating a platform for players as well to kind of bring their personality out. Um, Sawyer just did a thing with Bass Pro Shops. And you probably would have never known that Sawyer Robertson loves to fish, but he loves to fish. And so he was able to, get on social media and promote that he was going to be at Bass Pro Shops, and he met a lot of people there. I want to say it was during our bye week. But it's stuff like that that's super fun, and like you wouldn't know that about him. So as much as it is individual whenever it comes to NIL, I do think that there are its pros to it as well, as far as creating a brand for the guys and being able to show their personalities through that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Skylar. I really appreciate it. As far as this segment goes, we have like run out of time, but I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. It means a lot, especially to me. That's close to home for me, and so I really appreciate it, and it's great networking. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad, so happy to be on here with you guys.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so,
Thank
so
much.
much,
Thank
you.
Skylar.
you.
Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
one. Hi, Skyler. She was
Alrighty.
awesome. I
That was
loved
That was
everything she
great.
had to
great.
say. That was
Perfect.
so
Yeah,
good.
that was great. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it's interesting because like we're talking about like that social media advertising and like woke commercials and like that like just the culture change, the culture convergence with sports that we've seen. But Baylor's a traditional university. We saw the flip side of it. They're a school that doesn't really do that. So it was interesting to see how she's like, we're focused on tradition, that's what we care about. And you see things like I think it was in the Super Bowl last year, they debuted a Nike commercial that was talking about like all these great women's athletes, but it was like you can't win, so win. And it's like people will never like respect you the way they should, so just like make them by winning on the court. And I think it's interesting that, some older organizations believe in the traditionalness of that, and other organizations, especially the big time organizations, are like, we need to move as society moves and put more respect on things we haven't been respecting for so many years.
A lot of parallels between Baylor and Clemson, kind of when it comes to tradition. Like that was kind of the first thing that came up for me. But I also think it was funny that she touched on being authentic because we talked about that in our last episode. And I think that that's awesome that she brought that up because we've been talking a lot about like sport media in class. And, she even brought up like the Bass Pro Shops deal, made me think of even like the Tim Tebow video we watched, like that sort of stuff. So she really touched on everything. I loved what she had to say about just her career as a whole and like how it's still evolving and what she likes to focus on.
Yeah, I really like the part. I want to go back on like what Jordan said about the tradition, but also it's a little different. I know you said a lot of p parallels between Baylor and Clemson, but Baylor is also it's private because it's a Baptist school, as whereas Clemson's public and it doesn't have like a religious affiliation. So when she was talking about how she has to have things like clean, so to say, like there's things that wouldn't be posted, things must be posted clean for Clemson as well. Like there's a certain face we would like to show, like that's appropriate, but things I would feel would also need to be even more appropriate on the Baylor side, which I would like to see how that compares. But it was interesting to hear that, and I'm sure that that's a little bit of a difference there as well. So I thought that was interesting to hear.
I also, one thing, because looking on her Instagram and then she talked about it, how she posts her own content and then collabs with the like athletic teams. I feel like that's kind of unique. A lot of the times it's you're just a segment of Baylor Athletics or Clemson Athletics. Like you don't kind of get to be your own person. I think it's awesome that just scrolling through her Instagram, it's all her own. She's really like making a brand for herself, which I think is so awesome. And I feel like you don't get to see that a lot. You're just kind of another branch of the program itself, but she really gets to show off her content. And I thought that that was also super unique.
Yeah, and going off like branding and stuff, a little bit going back to the stuff she was talking about how the players have like the one had the Bass Pro Shop like collab and everything. Like it's just really interesting to see how different celebrities, specifically like different athletes, go about having different sorry guys, if you can't tell, I've lost my voice and I've been like dying this whole episode, but it's really interesting to see how different sorry, oh my God, to see how different athletes have decided to brand themselves and show their different personalities, whether it be like, oh, I really like this brand, but also, oh, like I'm really into doing this charity work, I'm into this organization, that organization, like I stand for these values, I stand for these political stances or these different whatever, like whatever is like core to them. And it's really interesting to see how like different branding. I know we talked a little bit about this in class and with the with the readings. And I just want to get your guys' take. Do you think that it's usually good for athletes to promote their brand as more of a oh, I like this brand and more of a collaboration and merging between themselves and like a brand they like or product, or do you think it's better to promote themselves as I like this organization, I support this charity, I have these beliefs, this political affiliation even. Like, do you think that's a good play for athletes or celebrities in general, or what are your guys' thoughts?
I think it's definitely like there's such a there's such a line because you will see like people or athletes post about either I don't know like yeah like you said their faith or their political affiliation and like you will see support but then you also one of the big things I always think about is like I remember when a lot of NBA players it was around like kind of that 2020 era a lot of players would post I remember some people would just be like shut up and dribble I remember that was like a big tagline that was going around because people didn't care so I think
Mhm.
you definitely, I think it also depends on like sport and audience of like whether or not you'll get, those people that are really like supporting you, or you'll see kind of those people who are like, I don't care, you're an athlete, I just want to see you play basketball or something like that.
Mhm.
I
I
also
mean,
agree with
Definitely.
the audience thing that you said, Jack, because I feel like it's so subjective to a lot of different sports and athletes. But I feel like Jordan, we were talking about this the other day in one of our other classes. We were talking about specifically religion and sport, and that was so interesting because the more we started to talk about um, the two combining, it was kind of like, can we have sport without religion? Sort of question. So that was interesting to dive deeper into that too a little bit because you realize it's so much more involved than you think it is.
and I think like going back to that discussion because that was a really unique thing that we like talked about. But I think it's interesting. We haven't seen anybody try it from another faith. We've seen it's in like entirely Christianity that gets publicized. We haven't seen ESPN or anybody try to publicize an athlete that doesn't believe in that and is
Mhm.
praying to somebody different. Like, so
I
I,
do have a counter argument to that, but it's not very like or whatever.
We'll
I
find one.
seen
We'll find one.
go
I
ahead with
found
it.
We can
oh my
find
gosh,
one.
I forgot his name. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. He's a very famous NBA player, and
Are you
he
going towards
is
oh,
Muslim.
Oh, you're
WNBA
talking
player?
about
And
Jimmy Butler.
Oh, I was thinking Kyrie
uh,
Irving.
I
Oh,
think
Kyrie
I don't
Irving.
know,
Maybe it is
but
Kyrie.
he fasts during like during the
Oh,
NBA
that's
season.
Kyrie.
There's like
Yeah.
the fast, and he can't eat until like 8 p.m. and that's like very publicized, which I think is like also cool because for like I mean I like went to religious school, so I learned about all different religions. But my family, like my brothers and my dad, don't know it. We're Catholic. They don't know anything about other religions. So when they like found out like they were like telling stories about that through like the press and everything, like my brother's like, oh, this is so like cool. This is like he's so like that's crazy. Like he has to fast until like 7 p.m. He can't eat all day, but he has to play a basketball game anyway. So that was the one thing. But again, like you said, like they're very rare to produce or publicize other stories aside from like Christian ones because they just seem to be so much more either so much more common or just so much more relevant because of the media agenda that the media typically takes on. You know what
Because
I
I
mean?
just wonder, like hypothetically, Dodgers win the World Series, and Shohei, his interpreter, is like saying what Shohei said, and Shohei is thanking a God that isn't God, and it's like
Hmm.
how are people going to react to that? Like
Mm,
that's the culture convergence I feel like we're slowly getting to as
yeah.
media is trying to cover everything. It's not staying traditional anymore. Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
a guy like guys like Tim Tebow and Cade Klubnik, like they fit a mold that worked a while ago, but now the media covers like everything. So I feel like we haven't seen that yet, but it's really going to be interesting if it does happen and when it happens, because I think it's coming sooner rather than later.
Also, like to touch on that, like go Dodgers, by the way. But if if Shohei wasn't as good as he was, or like getting paid as much, or popular, or like just to think about how that would be different, because like I think like if he wasn't as good, people would be so much more inclined to kind of start to hate on him for that. But because he's so good at baseball and what he does, and for all these programs and teams, it's like you can kind of disregard that and just be like, oh, but he's the best and he won the Dodgers their World Series or like something like that. But just really quickly to pivot, because I know we're talking about the kind of general idea of like wokeness in sports and commercials, which to us nowadays is more so like social media. Like I almost consider like an Instagram reel a commercial at some point, especially if it's for, oh, Baylor Athletics football, like that's promoting their team. That's the same idea as a commercial, right? But like this is a hard question, but like how would you guys define something that's woke? Because I feel like the lines are so blurred, and now the term woke has this negative connotation. So what would you guys say to that?
I would say, okay, you have to understand, like, from a Southern perspective, like, woke, you'd have to understand, like, woke. If you say something's woke, you just be like, oh, like, that's, like, very hippie. That's very, like, my dad would probably refer to it as tree hugger like. But, I, I
I feel like
can't
it's
be
a
serious
very
right now.
You
it
you
But,
seems like a
really
hard
you really
term.
just
I
got your
think
dad canceled on the internet. Well done.
yeah, that too. I think it's just a
oh,
term
I
that
feel
people
like I
now
should have
use
said
to
that.
say something's like liberal.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but I feel like you can't say that either. Look how red I am right now.
Well,
Look.
also like just another
Um,
thing, like it's so because the way that the word is like changed over time, but I think that that's why Skyler was such a good guest to have on, like talking about Baylor and the traditions of that and how you don't have to let go of your school, university, company's traditions to kind of fit the mold of like today's content. I thought that that like kind of like tied it in perfectly and was like a perfect example of
mhm.
this week's topic.
I
Yeah. Have
think
you guys actually, Jordan, you go, it's fine. You
I
got it.
I think woke when it comes down to it now just means like change, like silent change. Because I feel like when I hear woke, I'm thinking like wake up. Like things have been happening and we're just now realizing it. And so I feel like they're put like that's why I brought up earlier the Caitlin Clark, like the women's basketball commercial that Nike did, because it's like women athletes have always been good. We're just now realizing it. That's like that's where I feel like woke comes into play. It's like these things have always been there, but now we're finally taking the time to notice that they're taking place. And so that's where I feel like woke and sport have that like convergence.
hmm
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I know we're kind of running like out of time, but my last thing was, I think that have you guys seen the Kendall Jenner Pepsi commercial? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
With the
The police
just the
officers and the
most
protest.
insane
Yeah.
commercial in the world that never should have been published at all. I think that things like that nature that just maybe come from a place of either ignorance or just not thought out. I think that things like that help or make woke the term woke just seem less serious, and that's what's kind of trickled into society. And like that's my thought. Whenever I think of like woke in a bad term, that's what I think of that commercial, which is really upsetting. It's really sad. That's what a big brand just ruined it.
Well, thank you everyone for sharing. And this was episode 3 of Rally the Valley. Can't believe it. We're so happy to have Skylar come on. Just a reminder to everyone, make sure to subscribe to the Sport News Media podcast on YouTube.